We'll do our little starting prayers. So I think it's auspicious that one of you lead the mandala offering, that we think of, do the mandala. If you haven't got that, don't worry, I'll do it. And think of the center and all the students making an offering as a request for the teachings. And then I can lead the second prayer. Good, wonderful.
Okay.
All right, darlings.
This ground anointed with perfumes, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land.
Wonderful.
O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained.
Good. Idam Guru.
Idam Guru Radna Mandala Kamniryatayami.
Okay, everybody. So now that we just all made an offering to the Buddha as a request for the teachings, and now we can sing this little prayer that we start every time. The first 2 lines are reminding us of our reliance on the Buddha, and the second 2 lines are stating our kind of purpose, our reason for doing this action of listening to these teachings together. We're thinking, we're making this statement. Maybe as a result of this, may we become a Buddha so we can benefit others. That's the idea, Sangye chodang toke tognam la janchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chönyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye dropa shog Sangye chodang toke tognam la janchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chönyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye dropa shog. So we're saying, until we're enlightened, we're going to rely upon the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and by the virtuous karma we create by listening to these teachings, may we become a Buddha. So then we can finally benefit all sentient beings. That's the plan. Okay. So good. Today we're going to, these 3 weeks we're going to be talking about the compassion wing. We've got the wisdom wing and the compassion wing. It's a wonderful analogy. It works beautifully. It covers all the Buddha's teachings. And it's also very sort of personal. The point of the entire path, actually, is to become this Buddha. So what is a Buddha? A Buddha is a person who's completely rid their mind of all the rubbish, all the fears, all the dramas, all the suffering, which we all have got so much of, And then they've only got what's left, which is incredible wisdom, incredible clarity, incredible power, incredible confidence, incredible compassion and empathy. And the Buddha's whole point, from the big picture point of view, is that that's the nature, that's the potential of every one of us. I mean, it's quite an outrageous idea, really. It sounds like mystical, But this is one of the things that we can really help us when we're having problems and dramas and we're overwhelmed by the negativity, just to try and remember that we've got this marvelous potential, that this negativity is true, it's real, it's right now, but it's not intrinsic to us. This is something that can be very powerful for our minds, So that's the compassion wing. But the compassion wing of this bird that needs 2 wings is your ability, is this enormous empathy with others, this connection with others, this seeing of others suffering, and this wish they be happy, which is love, and the wish they don't suffer, and that's compassion. But, of course, that's contingent upon the wisdom wing. If you're overwhelmed by your own, and you know this, if you're overwhelmed by pain, even just physical pain, but if you're overwhelmed by some mental pain and suffering and anxiety and worries, look at it. You can't think of anybody else. It's not possible. Your own suffering is so enormous, you can't think of anyone else. This is really obvious, and we know that from knowing other people, ordinary people in their daily lives. They're overwhelmed by their own suffering, and this is why we should have compassion for ourselves for a start, but certainly have compassion for others. So it's obvious, to prepare yourself to be able to benefit others, you've got to know how to benefit yourself. It's really logical, but we don't get that in our culture. Some of us in this life, we have enormously big hearts. We see suffering out there, we weep, we have compassion, we think, what can I do to help? But we don't actually have methods to know that first I've got to put myself together. And it's very logical in kind of obvious things like, let's say, nutrition. Let's say, you walk around, you see everybody really eating badly, obese, have bad health, and you can see that they're suffering. You can have incredible compassion for them, but what good is that compassion if you don't know how to help them? That's the wisdom wing. And that means here, it's just like perfectly well, if you want to help other people with their nutrition problems, you've got to know your own. You've got to go learn nutrition. You've got to learn nutrition. You've got to know why you're overweight and why you're not healthy, because you're not healthy for the same reason as them. So you've got to help yourself first, and that qualifies you to then help others. That's the logic of the whole path, you know. It mightn't be evident to us that it's like that, but when we get the big picture, it becomes clear that it is that, you know. So what's this wisdom? I mean, wisdom of nutrition is easy to get. You go to college and you learn it. The wisdom of music, the wisdom of mathematics. You know, you can learn all these things. So what's the wisdom we're talking about here, which is what we've been talking about since before, the last four weeks, you know, learning about your own mind, the way your mind works, the way the delusions work, the way we create karma. This qualifies us to help out, put ourselves together. Then it qualifies us to go, oh my God, look at all this. Everybody's in the same boat. We're all suffering. But let's look anyway at these qualities and how we get them in the Bodhisattva path. You know, but we're going to relate it all the time, though, to the wisdom wing, because you really can't separate them. I mean, you can, but to all the time see that the obstacle to why I can't have much love and compassion and empathy for others is the obstacle is because I haven't done the work on my own mind. So we've got to see the relationship. And actually, and also it can be a bit overwhelming, because if you start to look at all the literature about how to become a bodhisattva, about what bodhisattvas are like and the levels of love and compassion that they're capable of, it's overwhelming. It sounds like science fiction. It's not possible. It's not in our daily psychology. It's not in our normal views of what's possible. Honestly, it just sounds like science fiction, which is how we think of religion. It's science fiction. It's not real, you know. But this is real possibilities. But I know when I first heard the teachings from the lamas, they teach whatever the component of the path is, they'll teach that in itself. So they go into an enormous detail about what is love and what is compassion and how you cultivate it and what you'd be like if you had it. It's like I said, it's overwhelming. When I first heard the first teachings, I remember thinking, that's impossible. That's like too high. How can I get there? How can I achieve that? How can I think of others all the time? It's like a joke, you know. It seemed too unattainable. And then I remember His Holiness Dalai Lama saying, and this really helped me, he said, if you want to help others, practice compassion. If you want to help yourself, practice compassion. So then I suddenly saw there was a relationship. And this is the interesting point about these two wings of the bird. Every time, you sit there and you work on your own mind, you understand, you abide by the laws of karma, you live in your vows, you look at your mind, you become your own therapist, you unpack and unravel what's going on. It appears a very self-centered it appears like a very self-centered action. Just like if you're completely, you're learning nutrition, it's all about you. Of course it's all about you. You learn about what you should eat and what your health is like and what you should put in your mouth. It looks like a self-centered activity, and it is necessarily about you. But the reason you're doing it is so you can be healthy, so you can help others. The reason. So then the thing is, by practicing these two wings, by working on your own mind and lessening your anger and attachment and jealousy, one, seeing that that's why you suffer, but two, you see that they're why you are cut off from others. So every time you work on the wisdom wing, every time you work on your own mind, that helps you become healthier and happier. But it also helps you see others. And then every time you work on the compassion wing, which is directed at others, that helps you help them, but it also helps you as well. You can't avoid that, so we have to see the benefit. That's why that was so powerful for my mind. You want to help yourself, practice compassion as well, It helps you. Don't underestimate this. So in the Tibetan tradition, there are these different packages of teachings that have been kind of cultivated over the centuries that culminate in the accomplishment of bodhicitta. So what is this bodhicitta? It's the result of development of incredible levels of love and compassion, Bodhi just means, in this context, I think something like awakening, and then citta just means mind. So it's this powerful attitude, such that when you've got it, not just momentarily, but when you've firmly, stably accomplished it, that, this thought of bodhicitta, there are various, what you'd be like. I mean, there are two main qualities of that. One is that you're only ever thinking of others. Now, this alone is almost ridiculous, right? Can you imagine thinking about others all the time? It just seems exhausting. Because why? Because we're overwhelmed by our own selves. So we can't even imagine this, you know. But that's the first thing. You'd be only others now are most important to you. And then secondly, you have this long-term, the second characteristic of bodhicitta is you have this long-term wish to never give up. Step after step after step, working on yourself, developing this perfection so you can become a Buddha, so you can be perfectly qualified eventually to help others. So it's a stupendous state of mind, and in ordinary modern psychology there is no such equivalent. That's why we think it's religion, that's why we think it's science fiction, you know, but the Buddha's saying it's possible. So bodhicitta comes from what? There's a series of, what we're going to go through is a series of 11 techniques, like a packaging of different little techniques that have been cobbled together, a combination of two separate techniques. One is the 6 causes and 1 effect, and it's called that, and the other one is called I don't know, they call it Lojong, which is whatever, but there's a combination of 11 techniques, little kind of meditations, bullet points. And people can spend years in meditation retreat on these, you know. And like all of these practices, they're incremental, gradual. This leads to the next, which leads to the next, which leads to the next. And of course, we're talking about internally incremental, internally gradual. It's a psychological path, you know. So what gives rise to bodhicitta is the development of unbelievable levels of what they call love and compassion. So there are hundreds of positive qualities. We can see it. You know, patience, generosity, kindness, all these. But we can summarize all of them as love and compassion. So many times we see this in the world. People talk in spiritual terms. It's all about love, they'll say. So let's look at what Buddha means by that. So as we know from looking at the Buddhist model of the mind, which comes in the wisdom wing, and we would have talked about this, you know, Buddha divides all the thousands of states of mind. He divides them into 3 categories. Those that are I-based, fear-based, neurotic, painful, disturbing, and we all know those intimately. Anxiety, anger, depression, jealousy, we've all got them. And this is what causes us so much pain. You know, we should have such compassion for ourselves. And they're also known as negative states of mind. Well, that makes us a bit nervous, like it's being critical or judgmental. Oh, you mean I'm bad? We shouldn't think like that. No, we're suffering, you know. So those states of mind are the ones that hold us back. They're the ones that drag us down. They're the ones that cause us misery. They're the ones that prevent us from love and compassion. Put it like that. So because in our modern psychological views, having some attachment, some jealousy, some anxiety, some anger, some depression, they're kind of considered normal insofar as you'd be abnormal if you didn't have them. This is our assumption, I think, but that's not Buddha's assumption. It's quite much more radical. So by working on the wisdom wing, we're lessening those states of mind, which automatically increases our connectedness with others. And then in the compassion wing, we're proactively working on growing the positive ones, which continue to mean that we're lessening the negative ones, because the presence of the negative ones drags our positive ones down, pollutes our positive ones, you know. So in these series of 11 techniques, and people spend years in meditation retreat going through these, accomplishing each of these one by one. They're mentally, as I said, kind of incremental. So the foundation practice, the basis, which we'll talk about today, the basis, the starting point, the basis, the foundation, you know, upon which you build the rest, that culminates in the development of bodhicitta. That's known as equanimity. That word is used in different contexts in Buddha's teaching. So on the wisdom wing perspective, you can talk about cultivating equanimity, and there it's a different equanimity. So the equanimity that you accomplish when you do the wisdom wing, which means you learn to control your body, you control your speech, you control your mind, you start to become your own therapist, you unpack and unravel all the thoughts and feelings and emotions, you know, on the basis of your daily practice and your discipline, you gradually become less attached, less angry, less anxious, less fearful, less jealous, less neurotic, less low self-esteem. This is really the way to put it. So then you become more stable. We can see now when we're really mentally suffering, and every one of us does to one degree or another, we're very unstable. The mind is all over the place and we can't control it. That's what causes us to be suffering so much. We all recognize that. It's so painful. We can't control all the negative thoughts. So we're unstable. So as you develop practice in just the wisdom wing, you get more balance, I mean, that's what we're trying to do every day. That's what they mean by equanimity at that level. But here in the compassion wing, it's a different definition. The equanimity we're describing here is in relation to others, how we see, how we view others. So this equanimity, very clear the way I would define it or say what it is when you've got it, is this heartfelt recognition that a so-called friend, a so-called enemy, and a so-called stranger, we'll go into these, are equal to each other from one point of view. And that one point of view is each of them equally only wants happiness, and each of them equally only wants not to suffer. Now, in a sense, you could say the wisdom wing is all about discovering that for yourself. Given that you do want happiness and given that you don't want suffering, then we've made a decision to follow Buddha's instructions, Buddha's methodology, Buddha's methods. That's our decision for getting happiness and stopping suffering. That's it. I mean, you could flip them over and almost say they mean the same thing. Everybody wants that. The whole universe wants that. But it's hard to see that because because we divide all the beings of the universe into these three categories. This is something that is absolutely normal. The world does it. Ants and dogs and monkeys and humans all have exactly this view of the universe. And why? Because when we learned in the wisdom wing, we learned about the neurotic states of mind. And we know that Buddha narrows them all down. They all subsume to these three: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. These are the three, they call them the root delusions. All the others are like branches of these. And even attachment and anger are branches of the root one, which is the ignorance. So, in terms of then seeing sentient beings through these lenses, that causes you, when you see a person through the lenses of your attachment, the attachment over-exaggerates their beauty and their deliciousness and their importance in your life, and they over-exaggerate their role in making you happy. And that person is what we call a friend. It's a very simple word. The person who's the object of your attachment. Now, for that person, we do have love and we do have compassion. But as we would say in our culture, it's got strings attached. It's a really powerful concept. Meaning my love for Fred is contingent upon Fred continuing to do what my attachment wants, which means be loving to me, be nice to me, be kind to me, do what I want, when I want, how I want. That's what we think of as a person, her friend, and therefore we adore that person. We get this. We don't, we've got to look at it. Now that's the only person usually we do have love for and that we do have compassion for. Now, what's the next category? That's called enemy. Now we might not use that word. It sounds quite heavy, doesn't it? But it's a useful word here for anybody who has proactively not done what my attachment wants. The husband who threw you out, the boss who sacked you, the sister who's mean to you, the next door neighbor who lies to you or is unkind. We all get this. Everybody in their life has some people like this. Well, let's call those, for the sake of convenience, enemy. It's the object of your aversion. So what's aversion? It's anger. How dare they do that to me? Therefore, all we do is see their bad qualities, and therefore we do not want them to be happy, which is love, and we do not want them to not suffer, which is compassion. This we know. We know this. And what's the third category? Well, one of the functions of ignorance, the root delusion, as we talked about in the wisdom wing, is this primordial grasping at an intrinsic me, the deepest mistake in our mind. On the basis of that, one of the consequences is this deep kind of indifference. So what is that? In terms of sentient beings, that's the third category, which is 99.999% of all sentient beings. So they're the people who've neither harmed me nor helped me. That's called a stranger. They're the object of indifference. This is the universe. We recognize it. It's completely natural. Everybody has this because everybody's got the three poisons. So in the wisdom wing, we were attacking the three poisons, working on these directly as a method for stopping my own suffering. Here on the compassion wing, we are continuing to break down these three poisons, but now it's in reference to sentient beings and how to break down the barrier between me and others that these neuroses have constructed. So you never stop working on your mind all the way from here to Buddhahood. The energy, the whole thing behind the work, the energy, the goal behind the wisdom wing is to protect you from suffering, to help you get more happy and less suffering. The energy, the benefit behind the compassion wing is how to help others. It's a shift in direction, you know. So the equanimity then is an attitude that we cultivate by using logic to argue with ego's ridiculous misconceptions that have constructed friend, enemy, stranger. And that's the thing, when we think about a meditation on compassion or love, we have a very sentimental view of it. It's like feelings and gooey and tears and this kind of thing. No, all these meditations are analysis. They're using logic to argue with ego's misconceptions, because ego's misconceptions are very powerful. We have to argue with them by using wisdom and logic to argue with them, to break down those deep beliefs in our mind, the belief of friend, enemy, stranger. So even as we're talking here now about this equanimity, I'm just going to use different logical arguments to try to prove that these labels have no actual basis. They have a relative basis, yes. The friend is kind to you. You can't argue with that. The enemy did harm you. The husband did cheat on you. You can't argue with that. And the stranger does neither harm nor help. You can't argue with that. They're facts. But the trouble is ego uses those facts for the basis of why I want them to be happy, which is love, and that I want them not to suffer, which is compassion. So Buddha says that basis is not logical. It's too narrow-minded. It's too self-centered. So we need to use logic to argue with ego's misconceptions. This is a really important point. Okay, so now even as we're talking, just in front of you, visualize, imagine right now in front of you, eyeball to eyeball, right in the middle, a person who's being mean to you, the boss who's unkind, the sister, the mother. Everybody's got somebody, you know, who's we think is being unkind to us, or is really being unkind to us, or whom we just don't like. It could be a politician. We can't stand the sight of them, you know, because they've got views that I don't agree with. And then to the left, have your beloved. Don't put your teacher there because, you know, you're supposed to see that person as the Buddha. Just put a friend. Is anybody who, you know, if you don't have anybody there, we'll try and imagine, I don't know, somebody, even your pussycat. But if you've got somebody you're connected to, whom you're close to, whom you love, whom you wish to not be happy, not to suffer, put that person there to the left in front of you. And then to the right, put a stranger, a person whose face you know just enough to put them there, but who's neither harmed you nor helped you. So therefore, the friend we have attachment to, and therefore we do have some love and compassion. The enemy, we don't have attachment, we have aversion for them, we want to push them away. And then we do not have love for them, and we do not have compassion. And the stranger, we're just indifferent, so we don't care, you know, couldn't care less. So this is normal life. Everyone's got this. And the whole universe is divided into these. There's no fourth category. Think about it. But one of the logical arguments is, you know, to argue with ego's views is that they keep changing. So right now, the person I adore, if you know, like I say, you're in love with somebody, you really believe that they're permanently perfect, permanently forever will be divine. But we know perfectly well it's not true. We know that person once was a stranger. I mean, at some point you didn't know that person. We know that. And then the same with the person who's the enemy. That could have been our beloved at one point. We know that. They keep swapping, they keep changing roles, they keep changing departments, And that's where it shows how unstable it is. So the view, of course, the way we think of it now, we see the enemy as intrinsically bad, as absolutely in their bones bad, bad forever. And the friend is intrinsically divine, and the stranger is intrinsically boring. No, it's not true. We can see that not true. So this is one argument to prove how it's an unstable way to analyze things. So the whole point of all this, the point behind all this thinking, is to get to see how at the moment those we love and those we have compassion for are only the friends. So therefore it keeps changing. So this is why a simple example I use, it's kind of a dumb example, but it's just a simple one. Let's say there's Lou. Lou's my example often when Lou is there. So let's say Anna knows Lou. And Lou is Anna's friend. Well, I mean, he's in New York and she's in Liverpool, so maybe they know each other. I don't know. From Zoom, they know each other. So let's say they're friends, and Anna's my friend, and Anna tells me about poor old Lou. He gets migraines. Now, I've never met Lou. Let's say I've never heard of Lou. He's the bloke who lives down the road at number 7. Oh, I know the bloke. Yeah, that one day he gets on the bus. I see him. Yeah, I know. That's right. But I'm indifferent. He's indifferent. Think of this. I have no feeling for Lou. He's never harmed me. He doesn't help me. I therefore don't care. And I try to have compassion for his headaches. Oh, does he really, Anna? He's got headaches, the poor fellow. Then I'll change the subject in 2 minutes. Pass me the coffee, Back to my gossip. So we know this. We understand this. I always tell this story. If you've heard it 77 times, I'm sorry, but it's such a good example. I was reading my New York Times on my iPad one day. This is years ago. And you know how they have the summary on the homepage, and down on the bottom right, the heading said, 350 people die in a ferry accident in Tasmania. Now, I'm born in Australia, okay? And Tasmania is one of the 7 Australian states. It's a little island just off Melbourne, where I come from. So I visualise this little, where they have these busy boats going back between Melbourne and Hobart. I think, oh my God, one of the boats collapsed. And as soon as I read it, it said, 350 people die in ferry accident in Tasmania. And I went, oh no. And I went to the story and I clicked on the picture, clicked on the story, and then I realised it wasn't Tasmania. It said Tanzania. Now, then as soon as I read that, I thought, oh, that's okay. I mean, Tanzania is not my people. Then I thought, oh, I better read this, and have some compassion. But that's the way we are. Tasmania is my people. Tanzania is strangers. So I thought, well, where's Tanzania? Oh, it must be there. It's in Africa. So I read the story and tried to have compassion. But automatically, it was my people. Tasmanians, Australians, And then as soon as I read it was a stranger, oh, that's okay. Kind of like it didn't matter. Automatic. We can't help this. It's automatic. Because we have the 3 poisons. So before we go further, why are we trying to get this equanimity? What's the logic behind it? It's very simple. Buddha's telling us we've all got the potential to completely rid the mind of the 3 poisons. Completely and totally. And first of all, why should we from our point of view? Because it causes us suffering. But here, the added reason is because it'll help us help others as well. It's going to be, you'll be the beneficiary, there's no question. But it will also help you help others, because the way we divide all the beings of the universe now, we only have one small group that we want to have love for, which is may you be happy. We only have one small group whom we have compassion for, may you not suffer. And that's our beloved friends. But it keeps changing. So that's where there's no logic to it. So there's Lou. He's a stranger. He's in the stranger category. I don't know the man. So I'm indifferent. I try to have compassion. We understand that. But nothing drives me to think about him all the time and have compassion and go to help him, Now then, let's say we meet and we fall in love and he moves me into number 6. Now suddenly what's happened to Lou? Lou has moved from the stranger category to the beloved friend category, has he not? We get this. We understand this. And now how do I think about Lou? Look at this. I never stop thinking about his headaches. I spend money on special doctors. I look after him. I love him. I have such compassion. And people say, Robina's so compassionate. Look how she's looking after Lou. She's so kind. But excuse me, this is the point of equanimity. When he was labelled stranger to me, you ask him, tell us about your headaches, Lou. He will tell you they were unbearable. He will tell you he only wants to be happy. He will tell you he only wants to be free of headaches. Of course. Now he's in my friend category, and you ask him, how are your headaches, Lou? He will say exactly the same as before. So the point here to prove is this. 1 minute he's a stranger, and I don't care. Next minute he's a friend, and I totally care. But his headaches were just as bad both times. His headaches have got nothing to do. His suffering and his wish to be free of suffering, his wish to be happy, are exactly the same when he was labelled my stranger as when he's labelled my friend. So that's all. I mean, but the world is full of all these friends, enemies, strangers. So we base our love and compassion solely on attachment. So we should be embarrassed. We love and have compassion for beings solely in relation to whether or not they fulfill our needs. So we should be embarrassed how self-centered it is, but we think it's normal. So go, okay, one step at a time, people. You can't suddenly leap into having bodhicitta overnight. So we've got to see the illogic of the way we have our love and compassion now, only for those, because now he's my beloved and I'm in number 6 living with Lou, and Lou fulfills my attachment, and suddenly I see Lou for the first time and I do anything to help him. So in other words, when we've got a lot of attachment for somebody, it's easy to love them. It is easy to want them not to suffer. But now, like every relationship, we're going to start to have problems. And I'm going to start getting fed up with his boring old headaches. He never stops with his headaches. I start getting a bit tired of his headaches. Then I start to think, oh, he's so self-centered. I start to get angry with Lou. And before you know it, I'll throw him out because I'm fed up with him and his boring headaches. We know this. So in the beginning, when the attachment is all excited and wonderful, everything looks perfect. So Lou looks divine, and I'm happy to help him. But you're hoping, as I keep helping him, he's going to learn to stop his headaches and you start feeling happy, please, because now he's dragging me down. So I chuck him out. And now he's in the enemy category. Oh, don't tell me about Lou and his headaches. He just never stops. We get this. The basis of all of this is attachment. So if somebody fulfills my needs, I'm prepared to want them to be happy. That's love. And I'm prepared to want them not to suffer. That's compassion. But it's unstable, as Lama Zopa says, because it's contingent on attachment. We sort of hear it when we hear it, but we don't join the dots. This is quite intense. We can see the logic of this, So we think, oh God, you mean I'm supposed to love everybody, even when he's miserable? Well, yeah, eventually, but not, can't rush there. So what we're trying to establish first, this is the key one point we are trying to establish, is that whether a person is labelled my stranger, my enemy, or my friend, whether they are labelled those three coming from my projection, that has nothing to do with the simple, provable, evident fact that every one of them, all the time, only ever wants to be happy and only ever wants not to suffer. That's precisely what we're trying to prove here. In other words, we're trying to get ourselves out of the equation. This is intense. Now, this is the point all the time. You can't do this if you haven't done the wisdom wing. If you're listening here and you're having extreme problems and you're overwhelmed by your suffering, you're overwhelmed by your anxiety, you're overwhelmed by your fears, and that's real suffering for many people for one degree or another, then you need to take care of yourself. These teachings are too advanced. You can't begin to think of other people's suffering if you can't work out your own yet. So if you're hearing this, yeah, one day I'll be like this, but don't force yourself, This is advanced. Even equanimity is advanced. It implies already a person who's done masses of work on the wisdom wing and has got some real stability in their mind. And most of us don't have, quite frankly. We're most of us up and down like yo-yos. So we have to know what teachings we are capable of practicing, But it's good to hear the more advanced ones. And if we can practice even once a day, how marvelous, So the key logic I'm trying to show here is that, this is the point, that the basis for my wanting someone to be happy, which is love, and for my wanting someone not to suffer, which is compassion, is pretty much based on attachment. Now that also can include groups of people. So right now, we know we do have compassion for lots of people. We see so much suffering on the planet. And this is a really major point, you know. So right now, though, we know that the only way we talk about suffering is when it's really severe, like a person is poor, a person's really suffering mentally, a person can't handle their life, a person, you know, is sick, a person is in a war zone. If we think of other groups of people, they are the only people we have compassion for, because that's the only group of people that we call suffering. So in other words, our view of what suffering is quite limited. Now this is where we have to go back to the wisdom wing again. In the wisdom wing, you learn the Four Noble Truths. And Buddha's talking to you in the wisdom wing, not other people. So you learn about what is suffering, and then you learn about the second one, which is there are causes. The third is you can get rid of it, and the fourth is how to do it. Now the first one, Buddha's got a much more broad, more subtle view of suffering. He's got 3 levels of suffering. The first kind of suffering, they call it the suffering of pain, the suffering of suffering. That's this one that we're seeing in the world, when people are poor, sick, terrorized, in war zones, raped, murdered, harmed. That's the first kind of suffering. That's easy to recognize as suffering. But Buddha's entire point is there are these subtler levels of suffering. So you learn all about the first level of suffering and the first level of practice, which is abiding by the laws of karma. And the Buddha exhorts us not to kill or steal or harm others, let's say, because you don't want future suffering. That's the very first level of practice, very simple level of practice, you know. And then in the Bodhisattva path, oh, by the way, this is added now, in the Bodhisattva path, he gives us permission to lie, and he gives us permission to steal if it's for the benefit of others, or even if it's going to be helping in the long term, if it's coming from a good motivation. It's okay to say things that aren't true because you genuinely know it'll be beneficial in the long term. So that's a very powerful point, you know, it's important to remember. But meanwhile, the point here is the very first level of suffering is only when the bad things happen. But the Buddha's got these subtler levels of suffering. And now, if we look in the world and we see a bunch of people who are rich and aren't getting raped, aren't getting murdered, have a lovely house, a lovely home, a lovely husband, lovely children, nice job, and we think, you mean I've got to have compassion for them too? What are you talking about? How are they suffering? But this is Buddha's subtler level of suffering. And this is the suffering of the mind, the suffering of attachment, the suffering of depression, the suffering of anxiety. And we know this in our world. We know you can be the richest, most successful person on the planet and you get depressed every day. We know that. You can have a lovely home and love money in the bank and all these wonderful things. And we know you can be profoundly depressed, profoundly anxious. This is the subtler level of suffering. So when we know this for ourselves, then we can have compassion for that group of people as well. This is huge, you know, and there's even subtler levels of suffering. Forget those now. So, okay, equanimity is this recognition that these 3 people, and that's the whole world, all of the strangers, all of the enemies, and all of the friends, however you label them, that they all are equal in their wish to be happy and not suffer. So even as we're thinking of the 3 people, sort of the key thing is to get yourself out of it. Try to see these 3 people separately from you, as being individual, separate people, not just see them through the lenses of your needs. This is quite powerful. This is quite hard, because these lenses are working overtime. Even the person in the street who you never met before, in the shop, who looks mean at you when you ask for your ice cream. Suddenly this person was a stranger. Suddenly, just on that one interaction, they looked at you not kind. Suddenly they go into the enemy category, or that mean girl at the ice cream shop, and you never ever remember, you never forget her. Oh, I met that mean girl. Don't go to that ice cream shop. That girl is so mean. We all like that. Enemy, you know, we label her enemy. Then somebody smiles at you in the ice cream shop, and forevermore you think, oh, that lovely girl in the ice cream shop. We paint the whole person, sometimes with that one brush, you know, we do that. It's always related to how people see me. So we're trying to get out of that. It's quite powerful, just this point alone. enemy, friend, stranger. So what we're trying to see is the basis, the thing is, equanimity is this simple idea that each of them wants only to be happy and each of them wants only to not suffer. So now, one of the problems with thinking this, let's say you think, oh, I've got to think of the ex-husband who really did cheat on me, who was really mean, and people can see he was that. This is not saying he wasn't mean to you. And then you hear, and you look at, so you've got your husband in your head right now, your ex-husband, and you're visualizing him, and you're thinking, he wants to be happy. What do we think then? The first thing we think is, what do you mean he wants to be happy, Robina? He doesn't deserve it. Think of this. Look at this. This is automatic, isn't it? If it's like a mean politician who really is harmful, who really is brutal, who's really dragging their country down to hell, and you say, well, he wants to be happy, the first thing you're going to say, you should be shocked. What do you mean he wants to be happy? He doesn't deserve it. Now, this is something we can talk the rest of the 3 weeks. What does that mean? He doesn't deserve it. Well, that proves the point that the only people we think I am going to give my love to are those who deserve it. And what is a person who deserves it? A person who does what my attachment wants. That's it. That's the assumption we have deep in our bones, It's rooted in whether or not. So if Lou is at the moment in my friend category, and he's being kind to me and loving, he looks after me, so I love him and I have compassion, I pay for his doctors, but he's loving me in return, then as far as I'm concerned, this is the point. Of course he deserves my love because he's helping me. But once he starts moaning and complaining and never gets better, and I get fed up with him because my attachment starts to get small and my aversion begins to grow, then I throw him out, and now he's in the enemy category. And I think, well, Lou wants to be happy. The first thing I'm going to think is, well, he doesn't deserve it. Look at him. He's so self-centered. He never stops about his headaches. He's mean. He complains. He moans. He doesn't deserve it anymore. So it's all related to whether or not a person is fulfilling my needs. This is quite powerful. I mean, it should be embarrassing to us. It's quite exhausting. But again, remember, if you're listening to this and you're still overwhelmed by your own suffering, don't think about this. Aim for it for the future. You've got to take care of yourself first. This is really serious. But Bonko Rinpoche said we've got to be a suitable vessel to do these practices. And suitable vessel, a person who's a suitable vessel to study physics in university is a person who's done high school. A person who's done high school is only a suitable vessel for high school if you've done junior school. So it's incremental, it's gradual. So we can hear the teachings, aim to practice them, but no, I'm at this point, I can't handle this right now. I've got to take care of myself and my misery and my suffering. I've got to take care of myself. Then I'll be able eventually to help others as well and start to look at the deeper levels of my own delusions, It's really important. So the logic we're trying to prove is that just because a person is mean to me doesn't mean they don't want to be happy. That's it. But that's the logic we use. Just because a person is self-centered and mean and nasty and really does harm others, that's no logical reason to prove the simple, bare fact that in his heart he's driven by his wish to be happy. In fact, you can say, because of negative karma, he believes that harming others is the way to get happy. That's his logic. That's why people harm others, because he thinks it'll make him happy. People who are addicted to stealing believe when they steal they'll get happy. So we do everything because we think it'll make us happy. So yeah, we're deluded. But the fundamental point we're trying to prove is everybody wants to be happy, is driven by this primordial wish to be happy. That's the point. Deserve has got nothing to do with it. And we're just simply trying to see that they're equal to each other in that one precise point of view. So how do you practice this in day-to-day life, Well, let's say you're in the ice cream shop and you're in a line, in a queue. And your next door neighbour comes in, and he's in a long queue, and he's kind of looking at you, hoping you'll put him in where you are. You're further up the queue, but you don't like him. You won't even notice him. Let him go back to the back of the line. But if your beloved turns up, you'll sneak your beloved with you in the queue because you prefer them. Well, all you got to do is think, before you do that, well, you know what, Robina? That smelly next door neighbour and my beloved, they're exactly the same. They both want to be happy. They both don't want to suffer. They both want an ice cream. So, keep it still. Keep it stable. You might have a grandchild, always use this example, you adore your grandchild, or your child for that matter. You adore them. They're beautiful, they're shiny like a little, they're like, you adore them. Of course you adore them. And then they're playing with the smelly kid next door whom you can't stand. We understand this. So straight away, equanimity, what you would do is you'd recognize, just be careful, Robina. Get yourself out of it. There's two kids there. One might be smelly kid, he might be mean. The other one might be a little saint. That's not the issue. It's your view of them that we're discussing. So you just check yourself. You say, go, Robina, they're both wanting to be happy. They both don't want to be suffer. That's equanimity. And then now, this is the point. This is the foundation. And then as we're going to go through the next 2 weeks, we're going to build on that, building the logical arguments to grow into love, compassion, great compassion that culminates in bodhicitta. It's incremental, gradual, psychologically, This is the starting point. This is the foundation. So do we have any questions about that? About anything, but about that specific thing? Because these points are quite specific, We mix them all up into a big glom, but they're quite specific. Equanimity is a specific state of mind. Are there any discussions about that? Or any questions in general? Please.
Yes, may I ask?
Yes,
hello,
go.
I was thinking about everybody wanting to be happy, and how can I know that? How can I know that everybody wants to be happy or sad? Because I can only know my own mind. I don't have the possibility to actually know somebody else's mind.
So you don't think by looking at people's behavior you can assess that everybody wants to feel good and nobody wants to feel bad? You don't think you can look at that by looking at even at behavior?
Yes, I do.
Well then, but that's what you have to do. That's the way to prove it. That's the way. Don't just believe it, John, but that is the way to prove it, I think. First you have to know it yourself. Then if you look at others, nobody likes to be lied to. Nobody likes to be stolen from. Nobody likes to be punched in the nose. People like to be seen to be, so I think we can deduce it by behavior, by observing other people. What do you think? There's no other way to check. That's the only way to check.
Yes, I believe you're correct, but it cannot be 100% experience because everybody has a different experience, so I cannot actually tap into what they're feeling.
That's not what I'm asking you to do. That's too advanced. Eventually, when you've got clairvoyance and you've got single-pointed concentration, you will be able to see that. But that's not the point here. I think keep it down at a very simple level, John. Keep it down at a very simple level. I think, first of all, you observe yourself, how you feel when someone is mean to you, how you feel when someone is kind to you, how you feel when you are hungry, that's the first step. Then I think on the basis of that, you observe even just behavior, generally speaking, ants and dogs as well. I've got a sense at that simple level, we're not asking to be advanced yet, at a simplest level, I've got a sense that you will agree that's one thing we all share, the thought to be happy, the wish to be happy, the wish not to suffer. The methods we use are different, the way we interpret it is different, but it's a kind of primordial drive. This is the way Buddha's saying. So, what else can we do except, I think this is my first suggestion, to look even at just behavior, to try and deduce this. What do you think?
I was trying to rephrase the whole question around, I agree with you, I totally agree with you. But to be more convincing for me, I was thinking about what is the outcome of this kind of thinking, and I kind of reached to the answer of getting stillness of the mind.
No, that's not the outcome. No, that's the wisdom wing, John. Here, this is the foundation. I'll have to make it more clear. In this specific area of practice, all these teachings are quite specific in their different areas. The reason we are trying to cultivate this heartfelt recognition that a person who is kind to me, a person who is mean to me, and a person who does neither, the thing we're trying to prove to ourselves is that these three people are equal in their wish to be happy, and they're equal in their wish not to suffer. So that's the starting point, the foundation. Then upon that, we will now proceed to develop what they call love and compassion, which is, may you be happy, may you not suffer, and then the methods of how to accomplish that. So that's the basis, that's the outcome. Eventually it culminates in bodhicitta, which is this profound shift in the mind where now only you wish everybody to be happy and want everybody not to suffer. But the starting point is to recognize that that's what drives everybody. So these 11 techniques are based upon this first one. It's an incremental, gradual development of these attitudes.
Okay, but since they are all the same, that means no differences between enemies, friends, and...
I didn't say that, John. I was much more specific than that. I did not say those words. Absolutely did not say those words. I said they're equal to each other from one point of view. Just one. Their wish to be happy. Their wish not to suffer. That's the only one we're discussing here. Because there could be a person who's a psychopath, and there could be a person who's a saint. That's not the issue here. They're certainly not equal from that point of view. Absolutely not. One tries to murder me and one loves me. They're not the same from that point of view. We're trying to look at the most fundamental drive in all living beings, that they wish to be happy and wish not to suffer. That's what we're trying to prove.
So there are differences, but under this criteria or criterion, there are no differences.
From one point of view, that's right. There's one point of view, they wish to be happy and not suffer. And we're using that as a basis to shift our attitude to want all of them to be happy and to want all of them not to suffer. Not because they make me happy, but because they want to be happy. That's the logic.
So somehow in my mind, I thought that the absence of differences from this point of view leads to stillness, in the sense that any kind of stillness requires movement. Like
that's the first. That's the wisdom wing, John. That's the wisdom wing. That's what will happen to you when you work on your mind and you have less attachment and less anger and less jealousy and less up and down. Then you become more equal in yourself. That's the wisdom wing attitude. You're absolutely right. Here it's another approach. These teachings, you see, they're quite specific. They're quite logical and specific and very kind of granular. And they're all stages of practice.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Who else, people? Anybody else want to ask about equanimity and the implications of it? I mean, John's questions are really good in showing us that all of this entire path each piece of it is contingent on the previous one. This is the whole point. So John's points are absolutely correct, but they're at a different level of practice. This is another level of practice. And I think it's quite hard for us to see how this whole path is like coherent, and these are necessarily the more advanced levels of the compassion wing. And they assume the work that already John is saying, some equanimity within yourself. That's back in the wisdom wing. That's junior school and high school. This is university level. And it's a different approach. So this is why John's questions were good, because you have to understand where this piece of practice fits. And it's based upon success at the wisdom wing. And this is not something we're very kind of familiar with, these levels of practice, Okay, people, any other questions? Any old question? I'm happy to have questions. And maybe you don't understand what I'm saying, and I'm sorry. Yes, Barbara.
Hi, Venerable Robina. Thank you for your teachings. I understand and believe in equanimity, that everybody wants to be happy. Where I get stuck is I will go to, and I will use, you always refer to him as Mr. Trump, which is so gracious of you. I just usually say Trump. Do I think he wants to be happy? I do. But boy, do I think he deserves it. That's where I'm stuck.
I understand. But I told you, but can you see the illogic of deserve? It's based upon the reason you think he doesn't deserve is because he doesn't make you happy. The only person, that's exactly the point, you're proving the point that Buddha's making. The only people we have love for now are those who deserve it. And what we mean by that is that they're kind to me and they have political views that I like. So it's totally self-centered, Barbara. And this is why when we see that a person wants to be happy, we just assume that. That's why your point is so strong. That's not the issue here. And it's not a question of deserve or not deserve. It's something we're trying to prove is that it's a drive that every living being has. And the point we're trying to do here is we're trying to find the methods of how to help Mr. Trump to be happy. And that means we have to first establish he wants to be happy. And then we can see that his methods are chaotic and terrible. Let's assume we're right. So we're trying, if we had an opportunity, we would then want to try to help Mr. Trump. But if you don't know that Mr. Trump wants to be happy, why would you want to help him? Because you just want to be angry with him and harm him. That's the point. So you've got to get past that. That's when eventually you are a bodhisattva. You have unbelievable love and compassion for every living being. And because you're a wise person, you will use tough methods for the heavy-duty ones, and you will use sweet methods for the soft ones. So you've got the ability to see the minds of all beings, and you will have the means to know how to help each one of them, which could very well include putting a person in prison. So it's like a parent with tough love, darling. Can you see my point?
I can, yes.
Good.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So it shows how intense it is, right? That's right. Exactly. Good. Thank you. What else, people?
I have a question, Venerable.
Yes.
Is it pity a low form of compassion?
Sorry, start again. I missed the first part.
Is it pity a low form of compassion? Or is it a sophisticated way of expressing self-cherishing?
So, I mean, we use it in a very general way, so I need a bit of a specific example, I think. Tell me what you mean by pity. We have that word, and there's a lot of definitions of it, so tell me what you think you mean by that, so we can all be on the same page.
For example, I see a very old man, decrepit, and I say, oh, what a poor person, and I really feel pity for him at that moment. But I don't do anything. I don't think about him anymore.
Okay. I hear you now. That's compassion, but it's at a limited level. It is compassion. It's not, it's compassion. Like I said before, when Anna tells me about Lou's headaches, I have a temporarily feeling of compassion, but because there's no relationship, because he's a stranger, because I'm held back by my own self-cherishing and my own attachment, I won't think about him more. So that still is compassion, but it's limited compassion because your attachment and your self-cherishing are driving it. That's the whole point, to see the relationship, Anna, between our virtues and our delusions. So when delusions are really rampant, when we're only being self-centered and self-pity and self-suffering and having panic attacks and going crazy and so much mental suffering, when they are really running the show, we know we can't see. Even if we had suffering people in front of us, we would be blind as bats. We couldn't see them. So that's why the wisdom wing is beginning to, and doing what John says, getting this equanimity in your mind, stabilizing yourself, some kind of stability, by lessening your delusions. And the immediate benefit of that is two. One, you're going to feel better. And two, you're removing some of the obstacles that prevent you from seeing others. And that's now when we're moving directly into the compassion wing. We're going to try to actively continue to lessen the delusions so we can grow the empathy and grow the compassion and grow the love, and which then become not contingent upon the delusions. That's the point. That's why we've got to understand this relationship between these two parts of our mind. So it's compassion, but it's just limited, that's all. That's all. That's all it is. You understand my point? It's limited compassion. If for a moment you get it, but because he's a stranger, you don't rush to help. If it's your baby, you'd give your life for that baby because of the connection, the karma, and because of attachment. That's the point. You with me?
Yes, and yes, I do. And but I was thinking that after you see that person that is in a big sufferance, the old person that I was telling you before, then the second thought is maybe, but he's in this situation because he made bad choices.
That's right.
in his life.
That's right. Exactly. That's why everybody suffers. It's exactly the reasoning. But what happens with that, we then become heavy. Well, he deserved, our next conclusion is he deserves it. And that's the mistake.
Exactly.
But that's the mistake, and that's what we do with ourselves. If you start to look at karma, and then you go, "Oh my God, you mean I'm suffering because of my past? Well, I deserve it then." That's the flip side of they deserve to be happy. They deserve to suffer. That's the heavy duty view we have now with ego. It's outrageous. It's a terrible conclusion to come to. So this is where we have misunderstanding of karma so heavy. It's rooted in deserve, which is kind of vindictive. It's heavy duty. This is why we've got to smash those delusions in the wisdom wing first. Because then we've got to start to recognize, I want to be happy, I don't want to suffer. And guess what? Buddha is showing me some methods. And the methods are to stop my own delusions, because they are why I'm suffering. And then it brings some kind of kindness to yourself, instead of being brutal with yourself and beating yourself up, which is the way we tend to hear it, which is so wrong. And then we bring that to, well, they don't deserve suffering. Look, it's their own bad choices. Of course it's their bad choices. That's in fact, for the Bodhisattvas, Anna, that is the basis of their enormous compassion. Because we've made bad choices out of ignorance. Because we don't understand cause and effect. It's like, regular example. The guy's old and sick because he's a bloody alcoholic and he's eaten too much food. You don't boot him up for that. You realise he didn't, due to his attachment, he's now suffering terribly. That has to be the basis of compassion, Anna, not he deserves it. And you don't have that view until you have that for yourself in the first stages of practice. You with me?
Yes, of course. I'm listening and I understand. Thank you.
Good. Very good. And this is the thing we're trying to see here. We've got so many assumptions in our mind. So we have to unpack these assumptions. That's what this series of practices are. We've got to start at the beginning in the wisdom wing, control your body and speech, control the servants of your mind. Then you start to work on your mind. Then you go to the compassion wing. So you're unpacking assumptions all the time. So your mind is growing and growing and growing. It's an incremental, gradual, stage by stage, internal process. It's very powerful. What next, people? Thank you. This is so helpful. What else, darlings? Any other questions? These are really good points. John's point, brilliant. Anna's point is brilliant. What else? Nothing else.
I would like to continue on the same topic.
Good, Julia. Yes, please.
Hello.
Very good.
So, in the same topic as Anna mentioned, if you see someone is very low energy, maybe you feel pity about him. But what if you have a colleague and the other colleagues exaggerate, making jokes about him? Let's say it's an attitude of bullying, as
yes.
it is
Yes.
in schools.
Yes, exactly.
How can we help that person that he will
Yes.
not be continually aggressed?
I understand. It's a really, again, it's a brilliant, this is where all of these teachings are leading to all these points. They're leading to them, but the starting point, equanimity. But let's just use a simple scenario. Let's say you're a mother and you've got two kids, and this is a good example. They both want to be happy. One is a bully and one is all weak and sad. That can easily be the truth, can't it? But pretend you are the mother. It's a good example. You love them both. You want to have compassion for them, and they both want to be happy and don't want to suffer. But you know very well, if the child who is the bully, whom you love, you will use strong methods to help that person stop bullying. But the crucial point is, it would come from your compassion for your bully child, because the bully child is also harming himself. That's the real level of compassion we will eventually develop, starting with equanimity. It's a tough one. But usually you hate the bully at work and you feel sorry for the other one. That's the usual level of compassion we have, but that's not stable. That's why we've got to first recognize everybody's driven by the wish to be happy and not suffer. That becomes a very profound assumption. Then on the basis of that, like a wise mother, you will use strong methods, but out of love and compassion, to stop the bully, to help the weak person. But you love them both. You get my point here, Anna? You get my point here, Julia? It's a tough one to try and have for the world, yes. But the analogy of a parent is a good example. That's quite advanced, because the usual reason you have pity for the poor little person and you are angry with the mean bully, that's the usual world, So this is quite a profound view, to start with the starting point, the foundation that everybody wants to be happy. Then you'll begin to understand, especially if it's your child, that bully kid, because of their own ridiculous habits, because of their anger, they've got this little boy, little girl in there who's wanting to be happy and is lashing out and harming others. I mean, do you understand my point? Very clearly, I'm sure. You do understand, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
It's a tough one,
Thank you,
isn't it?
Venerable.
To have that wisdom is quite strong, quite brave, you know? Thank you. It's a wonderful point, Julia. Thank you so much. And this is all what we're capable of in this compassion wing as we cultivate these different steps, these different stages of practice, you know? What else, people? These are very good points. Anybody else?
Wanted to ask you.
Good, Paul, yes.
Hello.
Hello there.
Yeah, since I've noticed aggression in me and this kind of attitude, towards others, and I started slowly seeing it that I do it towards me. It's my relationship with my father, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my colleagues, and I started to see that, this type of arrogance, let's say, or like me pretending that it's them doing something towards me, and mostly my mind, attacking them. I started slowly seeing this. I'm wondering, it's like how this transformation into, compassion, because first I imagine in a wing of wisdom, I have to have compassion for me.
Absolutely.
First, slowly.
That's right, exactly.
And, forgive myself.
That's right, exactly.
Practice inner child probably, or like just go there and visit that, which is one of my practices during these days. But it's like, how does that transform slowly into, I've heard Thich Nhat Hanh saying one day that, some rapist was doing something to young girls and he was looking at the rapist. And it's exactly what you're saying, actually. And I'm wondering when, how
I understand.
Slowly.
I really understand. I think this is the point about the compassion wing. It is not possible to see the human being in the harmer until you've seen the human being. This is the point, and you're making the point, but it's not a mysterious, it is a logical conclusion. The more, and this is the Buddha's point about why these teachings are incremental, the more that you see why you suffer is because of your attachment, which gives rise to anger when your attachment doesn't get what it wants. So the attachment's like the little child in there who's desperate to get only the nice things, who's frantic to get only the nice sounds, the nice smell, the nice words, the nice touch, the nice taste. It's primordially deep in all of us, Paul. And then the second that little child doesn't get it, the panic attack arises. And in some people, they will go in and get depressed. But in your case, like mine, you would lash out. That's anger. And then we harm others. So when we can understand that seemingly simple dynamic, which is quite primordial and quite deep, then when you realize this is why you suffer, and that's then why you harm others, when you know that for you, and you start this equanimity, you realize, and then slowly you're painting a new picture, and you see the rapist, you see the harmer, and because you've done the work internally, you know we're in the same boat, which is John's interesting point. How do I prove it? But you can only prove it by knowing in yourself, and then you can start to paint a new picture. And then you'll be tough with that rapist. If you're the judge, you'll put him in prison, you'll whatever, but it'll be coming from compassion. Because when you know this is the real point now, the reason you lash out to harm others is because of your anger, and your anger harms you. So when you know that the rapist, due to this is where the view of karma comes in, which is not so comfortable for the West, but if you have the view of karma, this poor dude has come into this life with a tendency to harm women brutally, that's a tendency. He doesn't know why he does it, he's just driven by habit. And then it's his anger and his harm, and his mind is so convoluted. Then you start to realize, my God, that's why he is harming others. So that'll give you compassion, but it'll be strong compassion, like I'm saying to Julia, like it's your most precious child. Rapists have mothers, and that mother would love that person, and some mothers are brave enough to even do the tough thing to help them. But this can never come until you've done the inner work. It is not possible. Not possible. Do you see? I think it's a simple example. If you're an alcoholic, and you start to take responsibility for it, and you start to go to AA, then you're going to start to look at the other alcoholics through the lenses of what you've understood about yourself, and that gives you the ability to have compassion for them now. So we can't leap ahead into this compassion wing. This is the point, Paul. So one step at a time.
Thank you.
One step at a time.
Patience.
Yeah,
I
that's
see
it,
that.
darling.
Patience.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, people. Anybody else? These are such good points. Everyone is so on topic. So perfect, you know. What else?
I have a question.
Good, Anna.
So we develop compassion more and more, and we develop wisdom, and in this way we can understand more and more the suffering of others. And you want to help others, but your ability to help others is limited.
That's right.
And there is a point when you feel you are overwhelmed,
Yes,
when you see so much suffering around you.
Yes.
How can we overcome
I understand
that feeling?
This is a really powerful point, you know, and it's a tough one. So I think it's a bit, let me use an ordinary analogy again. Let me use a simple example. Let's say you've got real compassion for all the suffering people in a war zone. So you decide you're going to rush off and help them in the war zone. You have enormous compassion. But let's say you walk into the tent where the people are with their broken legs and their hands cut off and all the screaming people. You see the suffering. It is stupendous. But the extent to which you can help them, which means you've studied medicine, you are a surgeon, is the extent to which you have the courage to then be driven by your compassion. But what keeps you steady and stable is your ability to help. But if you walk in that tent and you don't even know how to apply a band-aid, you're going to be overwhelmed by nightmarish suffering because you have no power to do anything. So the wisdom wing is what gives us the ability to more and more see our own mind and know that we can change, and then we see more and more people and we see the suffering, and then you have to add this bodhicitta to it. That's why the bodhicitta is so powerful. So that, using the analogy of the doctor in the tent, they're like the bodhisattva who is driven to even want to study to become a doctor, so because they have compassion. So compassion is not enough. That's what Dalai Lama says. Or even meaning well is not enough, as His Holiness, as Lama Zopa says. Meaning well and having compassion are stupendous. You've got to have that. That's what drives you. But to do what? To study, to be a doctor, so you have the ability to help. And that's what the wisdom wing is. You develop the ability to know what delusions are, to understand karma. This informs your ability to know how to interpret people's suffering. And the more and more you study the teachings, the more and more you have then, driven by compassion, you have the wisdom to know how to advise people, how to give them methods, how to lead them to internal mental health. But if you don't have that wisdom, you're lost. And the other one is you've got to be, and the bodhisattvas have enthusiasm. They won't give up. So every time we see suffering now, because it is unbearable, because we don't know why it's existing, because we don't have enough confidence in karma, because we don't know what to do and don't have methods, we either go crazy, go depressed, or we kill somebody. And then we just get overwhelmed. But if you have this view of believing everybody has Buddha nature, believing everybody wants to be happy and doesn't want to suffer, knowing there are methods because you're practicing the Buddha's techniques, knowing there are methods to heal people, using the analogy of the doctor, then the more you learn those techniques, driven by your wish to help, that'll make you go to the war zones. And then while you're in the midst of handling one step at a time, each person and their broken leg, you've got enthusiasm. And every time you see more suffering, it doesn't drag you down. You say, I'm going to continue to be the best doctor on the planet because I'll be able to benefit everybody. So that's what bodhicitta is. It drives you to never give up, to have enthusiasm. Because if I don't help, who will? The driving force is bodhicitta. But the wisdom has to be informed by wisdom to know how to You with me? Or not?
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Because we get overwhelmed now because we don't have the methods and we don't know why there's suffering. That's why we go crazy in our culture. So here we're using Buddha's view, of course. No one's forcing us to have a view of karma. But the more we understand why, and that's the point about a doctor. They know why the leg is broken and they have a method to fix it. That gives them enthusiasm. You with me?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I understand.
So all you can do is when you see the suffering every day, more suffering, more suffering, more suffering. You think I'm not capable yet, but I am on a path and I have so may you have bodhicitta thought, may I never give up on becoming a Buddha, because then I will be capable. May I become the best doctor. So that drives you to want to continue to never give up. That's what enthusiasm is. Joyful effort. Every time a bodhisattva sees suffering, it increases their wish to never give up. It doesn't deter them. It doesn't diminish. It increases their power, increases their wisdom, increases their compassion. And that's enthusiasm. We love. Enthusiasm is huge. Without enthusiasm, we can do nothing. Without effort and joyful effort, I can do it. It is possible. This is what we need to accomplish. Because the world is suffering. It's terrible. And then
so in the end, what makes me exalted of energy is my ego, that it's telling my self-cherishing, that is telling me that I'm not capable.
No, that's right. But even more fundamentally, this is why we have to understand attachment. Even more fundamentally, Anna, don't even just say ego. Attachment is the junkie in us that only wants everything to be lovely. Think about this. It's a junkie that only wants, minute by minute, everything to be lovely. Nice taste, nice smell, second by second, nice praise, nice traffic, everything. Think of ordinary life, Anna, every second. And what happens the millisecond attachment is thwarted? The wrong taste, the wrong coffee, the wrong traffic. Aversion arises. You have a panic attack. How dare this happen to me? Attachment and aversion are enough to understand why we suffer. So of course when you see suffering, your compassion is there, but the attachment's freaking out. This is not right. I can't stand this. So aversion arises. So we suffer because of attachment and aversion, darling. And it pollutes our compassion. It drags our compassion down. So the more we work on our own mind, to forget about compassion wing, the more we work on lessening attachment and lessening aversion, we get courageous, we get brave, and we get more happy. Therefore, then we see, oh my God, look at the world. Look at the suffering, just like me. And you get more enthusiasm. It's attachment and aversion. So in other words, we don't suffer. If we see all the suffering in the world, we think we suffer because we have a compassion. No! We suffer because we have attachment that can't stand problems. But it sounds so wicked to say it this way, but it's very clear. Do you understand?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Okay. What else, people? 10 minutes to go. These are such good questions. Every question has been like 100% best question, I tell you. It's amazing. What else, people? Nothing else? I mean, because I've talked so fast, it's probably more like 4-hour class. I mean, we could easily stop now. I'm not trying to cut you short. What was that, a hand? Was that Radu and Madeleine? You got a hand there. Talk to me, honey. Go on.
Hello, dear.
Hello.
Thank you for your teachings.
Yes.
Why do I have a very strong feeling that everything goes back to the primaries, to meditation, to the first stages of meditation, shamatha and vipassana, because only there we can find the proper answers to absolutely all the questions which were addressed this evening.
Well, I don't think I'd agree with your analysis, but I'm not trying to be argumentative. I would say that's the culmination of the wisdom wing. You know, absolutely you're correct. If you've got single-pointed concentration, Radu, are you Radu or you're the other one? Madeleine. Radu. Okay, Radu. If you've got single-pointed concentration, this brilliant technique taught by the Buddha, you would have a brilliant, clear, laser-like mind. You'd be blissful. You'd be joyful. You would have subdued, not completely finished, but you would have temporarily subdued your attachment and your delusions. You'd be brilliantly clear. And then when on the basis of that concentration, you would then get insight into the nature of reality, not just conventional reality, but you'd finally realize emptiness. That is another way of summarizing the entire path, but it doesn't cover the compassion wing. That's the wisdom wing, Radu. That's what gives you your liberation, your nirvana, and then if you're driven by that, you'd be out of here and you won't come back. But we're discussing the compassion wing here, which is you use that brilliant wisdom, you use that joy that you've got, you use that insight into reality to want to be of benefit to others. You've got to cultivate the compassion wing as well. That's the way of putting it, I'd suggest. What do you think about that? Because what you just said is summary, the concentration and insight. Yeah, that's the summary of the wisdom wing. Exactly. I'm just drilling down and unpacking the different components. Because 99% of people are not going to get single-pointed concentration. To get it properly, you've got to give up sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You've got to give up your partner, give up your couch, give up your house, give up your dog, give up your job, go to the mountains and work for several years, and then you will get single-pointed concentration. So, honey child, if you're ready for that, that's the quick path. Yes. Are we communicating, my dear? A little bit, something. A few thoughts there. Good. Good.
Thank you.
Good. That's the best one. That's the quickest one. Of course it is. But 99% of us Buddhists, most of us aren't qualified because most of us have our partners and our houses and our dogs. So I'm talking about ordinary life humbly for all of us in the midst of ordinary samsaric life, you know, to go one step at a time. But you're totally correct. That's the wisdom wing. Yes, brilliant.
It happened to me before, as an example with Mr. Trump, as someone who is very heavy in his stances.
That's right.
Well, it happened to me that I got stuck for a moment and thought, okay, who is the one who actually doesn't like that person on what he says or what he does?
Good.
The crazy mind, the monkey mind,
sure, yes,
or the one who actually acknowledges what is happening.
There you
because
go.
the
Good. Perfect. But this is wisdom.
Yeah.
This is the more advanced level of wisdom. This is great. All of this is valid. Perfect, Radu. Anyway, you keep moving. You keep moving, keep practicing the wisdom wing and the compassion wing together.
Trying to.
Thank you so much. Every one of you is brilliant. That, I think we're going to end. It's a really good place to end, I think. I think each question was amazing. So topic, so perfect, so delicious. So I think it's been a marvelous morning we've had together, or evening for you guys. So we just finished with thinking, may these seeds we've planted in our minds, they don't go astray. So may we nourish these seeds with our practice from this second as well as we can to the degree of our capability, one step at a time, with enthusiasm, never giving up on our marvelous potential so we don't give up on others. Jangchub, Semchog, Rinpoche, Makye Panam Keguchi, Kepanyampa, Mepayang, Gongne, Gondu, Pabashog. Let's make compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much, Anka. Thank you, everybody, John and Radu and Lou and Paul, every one of you. Brilliant, brilliant questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Much
Venerable.
love, people.
Thank you.
Julia as
See
well,
you
and
next
Julia.
week.
And
See you
Julia.
next
Thank you,
week.
darlings. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anna.